Nettles is a character I was very much looking forward to seeing in a live-action adaptation. Fans are still split on what she really represents in the lore. I'm talking the grand scheme of things. She's a brown-skinned character from Driftmark that earned the trust of a wild dragon to the point of letting it be its master. The dragon was Sheepstealer. A familiar premise, right? Nettles' character was scrapped, and a sad version of it given to Rhaena Targaryen, Season 2 of House of the Dragon. This was a common practice in Game of Thrones. Jormungandr stole Griff's whole wild storyline, contracting grayscale while trying to save Tyrion's life. Sansa got fake Arya's adventures marrying a psychopath, and there's a few others. But there's a very excusable reason for Game of Thrones making cuts. The source material is massive in the main books, and nowhere near complete. House of Dragon is only adapting parts of one lore book, and instead of expanding upon the minor characters and dialogue, Season 2 showed fans they can't even adapt the bare minimum anymore. If the rumors of big budget issues plaguing production are true, it seems they weren't equipped for that roadblock. There's a reason the author of the books has been taking his sweet old time coming up with more books. This is a very complex fantasy. House of Dragon is a little simpler because there are fewer plot lines outside of the main conflict. Princess Rhaena Targaryen doesn't have a lot going on in the lore. Her whole character revolves around the struggle to hatch a dragon egg and bond with a beast. This strips her of her dragon tamer identity that her royal family is worshipped for. Rhaena at a young age did have an egg hatched for her, but the baby dragon was sickly. This point is important. George Martin carefully adds all these little details to fill out his world. Humans, animals, even insects, all have moments where offspring don't survive long after birth, due to health issues, right? But this time period had the rumor of maesters purposely poisoning the dragon eggs, in hopes to completely eradicate those flying weapons of destruction that can only be in the hands of one unstable family. Plus, the Targaryens and readers are still trying to fully understand the magic that goes behind blood bonding with a dragon. Rhaena would eventually be given 3 newly laid eggs, thanks to Syrax, and one did eventually hatch for her, early into her stay in the Vale. Whether or not the previous hatchling bonded with her in its few short hours of life, this next hatchling did. Nerds like us want all these tiny pieces of a mystery. We like knowing the rules of a magical system. Rhaena's characterization in Season 1 set her up to have a lot more emotional moments with her father, Daemon, who was obsessed with Targaryen supremacy. But instead of building upon their own creative liberties, which were great, writers didn't want to think anymore when it came to Rhaena, and especially Nettles, trying to save their brainpower for other more important characters. But combining her story arc with Nettles comes with repercussions. Nettles affects the grand scheme of things in a way that Rhaena never could. I can spoil this now since it's never going to make it to television, but Daemon has an affair with the young Nettles. With a boost in dragon riders that came from base-born commoners like Nettles, who was homeless, also Adam of Hull, Hugh the Hammer, and Ulf the White, the Black Riders could team up against the Greens out of fear of the big bad Vhagar. Nettles flies around on Sheepstealer with a patrol partner in Daemon and Caraxes. The only character to ever tame what was considered a wild dragon out of the known 3 living on Dragonstone. Hatchlings are the easiest to tame. Adult dragons, much harder to bend to your will with their willfulness and intelligence. Adult wild dragons that have never known a rider are a whole other level of danger. None of the dragon seeds were fool enough to disturb the cannibal. Any who were did not return to tell their tales. Some sought the Grey Ghost, but could never find him, for he was ever an elusive creature. Sheepstealer proved easier to flush out, but he remained a vicious, ill-tempered beast who killed more seeds than the 3 castle dragons together. One who hoped to tame him after his quest for Grey Ghost proved fruitless was Alan of Hull. Sheepstealer would have none of him when he stumbled from the dragon's lair with his cloak of flame. Only his brother's swift action saved him. Sea Smoke drove the wild dragon off as Adam used his own cloak to beat out the flames. Alan Valerion would carry the scars of the encounter on his back and legs for the rest of his life, yet he counted himself fortunate for he lived. Many of the other seeds and seekers who aspired to ride upon Sheepstealer's back ended in Sheepstealer's belly instead. In the end, the brown dragon was brought to heel by the cunning and persistence of a small brown girl of 6 and 10, who delivered him a freshly slaughtered sheep every morning, until Sheepstealer learned to accept and expect her. Munkin sets down the name of this unlikely dragon rider as Nettles. Mushroom tells us the girl was a bastard of uncertain birth called Nettie, born to a dockside whore. By any name, she was black-haired, brown-eyed, brown-skinned, skinny, foul-mouthed, fearless, and the first and last rider of the dragon Sheepstealer. I personally believe Nettles didn't have a drop of Targaryen blood in her based on the way she's described in that big quote from the lore book, Fire and Blood. But it can really go either way. Doubtful her ancestry will ever be revealed, so it's up to our interpretation. If I am right, this shows a new way to tame and bond with a dragon, simply earn its love and trust, the old school way. Adam of Hull is a Valyrian bastard, so it's a given he has a hefty dose of Targaryen blood since they intermarried often. The show kinda messed with things, making the Valyrians black. Not a major deal, cause diversity hiring was inevitable. I had a really good laugh reading a comment about House the Dragon's decision to turn this family dark-skinned, which opens up small plot holes, while also cutting out the black character from the books that has a nice role to play. Very poor planning. Daemon's fascination with her ability to tame a dragon and then becoming romantically involved would have worked even better in the show than the books, because he's a Valyrian historian in the adaptation. But Nettles had to be cut. You can pin this all down to poor planning. That, and one plot point they seem to really want to avoid. Rhaena and Alicent are very different in the show. The writers have made it their goal to change both queens' perception. More of the loving mother archetype as opposed to self-absorbed, privileged egomaniacs. And they can get away with it by saying the singers and maesters in the book's history are untrustworthy, easily capable of spreading propaganda. Nettles served the blacks loyally. Sleeping with Daemon can hardly be seen as treason because the rogue prince was banging Mysaria all throughout his marriage. Rhaenyra knew, but didn't care. The Civil War had a deeper effect on her mental state in the books, however, angrier and more distrusting. Nettles burned and killed many under her orders, yet her queen still wanted the teenager killed. Nor can Nettie truly be called pretty. A skinny brown girl on a skinny brown dragon, writes Munkin in his true telling, though he never saw her. Septon Eustace says her teeth were crooked, her nose scarred, or had once been slit for thieving. Hardly a likely paramour for a prince, one would think. Her Grace asked whether she thought Sir Adam and Nettles might be planning to betray them. Then the White Worm raised her eyes and said in a soft voice, "The girl has already betrayed you, my queen. Even now she shares your husband's bed, and soon enough she will have his bastard in her belly." Then the Queen Rhaenyra grew most wroth. As to the girl Nettles, she is a common thing, with the stink of sorcery upon her, Septon Eustace writes. The queen declared, "My prince would never lay with such a low-born creature. You need only look at her to know she has no drop of dragon's blood in her. It was with spells that she bound a dragon to her, and she has done the same with my lord husband." As long as he was in the girl's thrall, Prince Daemon could not be relied upon, her grace went on. Therefore, let a command be sent at once to Maidenpool, but only for the eyes of Lord Moon. Let him take her at table or a bed and strike her head off. Only then shall my prince be freed. Rhaenyra had a hard time accepting. Targaryens might not all be that special. Oh, but this version of Rhaenyra wouldn't make for a very likable main character on TV, would it? Yeah, we got shafted on some fun plot points. Even the conclusion to Nettles' story is amazing. Daemon the asshole helps her escape the death sentence. She flies atop Sheepstealer to the Vale, hiding in the mountains where most couldn't reach her. A small army did stumble across them in a cave, but Sheepstealer dealt with them and took off even deeper within the Vale's mountain range. A ragged woman clinging to its back. That was the last known sighting of Sheepstealer and its rider, Nettles. Though the wildlings of the mountains still tell tales of a fire witch who once dwelled in a hidden vale far from any road or village. One of the most savage of the mountain clan came to worship her, the storytellers say. Youths would prove their courage by bringing gifts to her, and were only accounted men when they returned with burns to show that they had faced the dragon woman in her lair. She somehow became the founder of the most fearsome mountain clan in this kingdom, the Burned Men. The Burned Men are still kicking strong, even in the Game of Thrones timeline. Nettles and Sheepstealer may be long gone after their kinda sorta happy ending, so now boys trying to prove themselves just mutilate their own body parts with an open flame instead of dragon fire. And this all got cut.